Hi, second graders. It's Mrs. Stickle here. And today I want to teach you a phonics lesson, which is session 7. And please mirror me with our I can statement. I can master the sounds and silence of GH. And second graders, I think that I have really found it. I have found the most complex, the hardest, the master in disguise. Are you ready to know what it is? It is right here. It is right here in these words. Do you want to know what they are? Okay, let's read them. The first word is ghost. And I want you to see if you can find what all these words have in common. All right? The second word is might. Enough. And through. Can you spot what the really tricky consonant combination is in all of these words? What is it, you guys? Do you know? I hope that you said in all of these words is a GH. Yes, there was a GH in through. There's a GH in ghost, in might, and in enough. Yeah, there really was. There was a GH combination in both of those, in all of them. So today I want to teach you that the GH is the ultimate master in disguise. It can represent so many different sounds. Sometimes it makes a G sound, like in ghost, and a lot of times it makes a F sound, like in enough, right? And then sometimes it can even be really silent, like in might. Can you even hear it in might? No, I can't hear it at all. It can be really quiet. It can be. So might is actually in our Snap Word book, and it comes up in a lot of other books too. So can you think for a second about the pattern IGH? And you might even remember it from the little song IGH, IGH, I. Don't forget the T, ite, ite. If you remember that from the phonics dance. Yeah. So what other words can you think of that have the IGH or even the IGHT pattern in it? Can you think for a second? IGH or IGHT? Let's think for a second. An I pattern or even an IT pattern? Think for a second. Can you think of any? I made a list of some, and I want you to look at this list if you came up with any. And here is my list of IGH words or IGHT words even, all right? I have might, light. If you even added an ending, a suffix, and the ing, you could have lightning. What about high? Look how high that is. That has an IGH. Higher. Fright. Ooh, that gave me such a fright. That has an IGHT. And sigh or side. That was such a big sigh. All of those words have an IGH or an IGHT that make an I or an ite sound. And they all could really help you if you knew how to spell the word might. So remember, if you can start with the word might, that could be a really good starter for you to start with the IGH or even the IGHT pattern. So remember that. It can be really tricky, but if you have part of that IGH team, that can help you with that. All right? Now, let's think about the word next that was ghost. If you saw that GH pattern, that just made what sound did that GH make? It was kind of a G sound, right? Yeah. So can you think of any other words that just make a G sound that have a GH to them? Think for a second. This is not quite as common as an IGH for an I sound, but let's think. A G for a GH. Here are a few. We have ghost, of course. And then also what reminds me of Halloween too is a ghoul. A ghoul. And that has a GH team. And that has a G sound for your GH. And then also something you really might like to eat for dinner is the next word, which is spaghetti. And that has a GH team. And that just makes what sound? A G for your GH. Yeah, so there are 3 other words that would have the GH team that just make what sound? Tell me again. A G. Yeah, just make the G sound for a GH. Now, the other one that is a little bit tricky, tell me what it's doing in this word, in enough. Enough. You see the GH there, right? But what is the GH doing in enough? It's making what sound? It's making the F sound, isn't it? Gosh, that is a little bit tricky. That kind of breaks a lot of the rules that we've talked about before because the GH makes an F sound. So this time, what I want us to do is I want to give you a second and I want you to get out your whiteboard or I want you to get out a piece of paper and we are going to practice something that we have done to tackle a word. So I'm going to give you a second to get out a piece of paper or your whiteboard. Go ahead and do that right now. All right. You can press pause if you need a little more time, but once you have a piece of paper out or a whiteboard, let's look at some of the ways that we could tackle a word just to practice it and really memorize it to learn it, because this really breaks a lot of the rules and a lot of the patterns that we've talked about for a word like enough, where a GH makes a f sound. So one of the ways that we've talked about just tackling a word like this is that we could start by studying the word. And let's really look at a word like enough. Okay, and when I look at enough, I see my E-E-N, en, and then my O-U are a vowel team, right? That make a long O, right? Actually, it's kind of a short O, a short U, ena. And then I have my F sound, don't I? So I know right away, I'm just going to say this over and over a couple times, that my GH make my F sound. So let's try this again because I kind of messed up our vowel pattern. We have our E, N, and then and OU, which kind of breaks our long vowel rule again, that just make an sound for an OU, and then our GH make our F sound, doesn't it? Enough. All right? So then another thing that we can do here is to think about our word to tackle it. All right, let's think. Can our phonics help? Yes, we just used phonics to help a little bit. We talked about it sound by sound, and we used our phonics. And then can we invent a trick to help us spell it? Yeah. So, is there a word within a word that could help us? Well, I do see the word no here. So I could remember that there is a word within a word, but no, well, I can remember the word no is in there, but it doesn't really sound like no within it. So that could help me a little, but it doesn't sound like no within it. The thing that I think could really help me is our third one. I can cover it, I could write it, and then I could check it, and I could just really memorize it, couldn't I? So I'm going to cover up the word, and then I'm going to try to write it again. Are you ready, guys? Let's cover it. Let's write it. E-N-O-U-G-H. Did you write it correctly? Let's check it. E-N-O-U-G-H. Did you do it right? Good job if you did. Nice. And it takes me a few times to cover it, write it, and check it. I have to do it at least 5 times to feel like I might remember it for more than a second. So you might want to pause the video, cover it, write it, and check it at least 5 times just to see if you really spelled the word enough correctly. And then the last thing that you could do to really tackle a word is to chant it. And I love to make up a chant too. E-N-O-U-G-H. E-N-O-U-G-H. And break it up into like 2 letters at a time. Do your vowel pair, and then whatever our consonant pair is too. E-N-O-U-G-H. And tackle that word. I know that you could really learn this word enough in just our phonics lesson today. So try it, challenge yourself, learn this word. I know you can do it. Another word that is really kind of challenging also is the word through. Through. Gosh, can you even hear the GH in the word through? Through. It's silent. I can't even hear it. That's another tricky word. So you could really try to tackle the word through today also. T-H-R-O-U-G-H. I challenge you to tackle the words enough and the word through today. Try to come up with a way that you could tackle those 2 words today. Enough and through. Okay? Then the last thing that I really want you to think about when you think about G and H is they stick together. Those 2 letters stick together. So here's kind of a song that is a little bit silly, but it will help you remember that G and H really stick together. And this goes to the tune of The More We Get Together. So here's how it goes. Keep G and H together, together, together. Keep G and H together, don't break them apart. In neighbor and highway and laughter and daughter, keep G and H together, don't break them apart. In straighten and mighty and lightning and frightening, keep G and H together, don't break them apart. Good job, you guys. That was a lot of words that we learned today that have a G and H sound that are together. But the one important thing to remember is, do we ever break them apart? We do not. They make a lot of different sounds, or they could be silent, but we do keep them together. We don't break them apart. So your challenge today, while you're reading or when we get off the video, is to try to tackle the words. Are you ready? Enough and through. Thank you so much for listening. You did a really good job today, guys. All right. Good job.